And welcome to this ordinary meeting of Wingecarribee Shire Council on Wednesday the 18th of October. We are starting a little bit later because the public forum went a bit over time. But I've got to remind everyone to turn their mobile phones either off or to silent, and that this meeting is being recorded and live streamed. Acknowledgement of country. Wingecarribee Shire Council acknowledge the Gundungurra and Tharawal people as the traditional custodians of this land we now call Wingecarribee Shire. I pay my respects to elders both past, present and emerging. I would also like to extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders present here or watching today. Statement of ethical obligations. As Administrator, I will undertake the duties of the Office of Administrator in the best interests of the people of the Wingecarribee Shire Council area and to act faithfully and impartially in carrying out functions, powers, authorities and discretions vested in me under the Local Government Act or any other act to the best of my ability and judgment. I am committed to the declaration of conflicts of interest in relation to items listed for consideration on the agenda or which are considered at this meeting in accordance with the Code of Conduct and Code of Meeting Practice. Obviously there are no apologies. Adoption of minutes of the previous meeting. I would move that the minutes of the ordinary meeting of Council held on 20 September be adopted as a true and correct record of proceedings of the meeting and declare that carried. General Manager, declarations of interest?
There are no declarations, Mr. May.
Thank you. There is no minute, so we now move to matters listed for consideration. Item number 1 is the Audit and Risk and Improvement Committee Annual Report for 2022-2023, so that the Chair of the Audit Committee can be heard. I would move that standing orders be suspended in order for Mr. Stephen Horn, Chair of the Audit, Risk and Improvement Committee, to address Council on item 9.1 Audit, Risk and Improvement Committee Annual Report 2022-2023 and declare that carried. General Manager.
Thank you, Mr. May. I'd like to introduce Mr. Horn as the Chair of the ARIC, and I believe you're going to address the Council.
Thank you, General Manager. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's my pleasure to present the 2022-23 Annual Report of Council's Audit, Risk and Improvement Committee. We use the term ARIC as a convenient abbreviation. The ARIC's formal report is tabled in the meeting papers for the public record, and I'd like to touch upon just a few key aspects. The current ARIC commenced on 1st of September 2021. It was established with a scope reflecting the revised requirements for ARICs developed by the Office of Local Government. The community is likely unaware that the role and scope of an ARIC in the New South Wales local government sector is in fact the broadest for such committees in any sector, public or private, anywhere in the world. Having said that, it's important to understand that the ARIC provides an advisory and assurance role only and has no administrative function, no delegated financial responsibility, nor any management functions. The ARIC's roles and responsibilities are set out in its charter, which is available through Council's website. The ARIC's initial substantive areas for focus in our first year were financial management and Council's arrangements for responding to natural disasters. During our 5 meetings over the course of this, our second year, 45 reports were presented to the ARIC, covering our spectrum of areas of focus as set out in our charter. In executing our work plan for this year, the ARIC has continued to focus on Council performance through delivery of Council's strategic roadmap, change management within Council as a key facilitation capability to support Council's raft of reform initiatives, and progress on actioning a range of deep dive reviews that were initiated during administration. The ARIC has also continued to focus on the foundations of strong financial management, which included benefiting from an Auditor General's performance audit report of Mid-Coast Council's financial management, which served as a blueprint against which all councils could assess their practices. This year, we also focused on the vital area of employee wellbeing and safety, and we took a strong focus on cyber risk. We're pleased that a detailed roadmap for further progressing cyber risk maturity has been developed by Council this year. We also endorsed a refreshed strategic internal audit plan delivered through a new third-party provider, and we're now receiving a regular series of internal audit insights as part of gaining assurance over Council's control environment. The specific topics that we covered in internal audits this year are set out in detail in our annual report. One of our key areas of focus for 2024, coming ahead, will be championing further maturity of enterprise risk management at Council. ERM for short is the holistic management of all risks appropriate to Council's operations and is aligned to its community strategic plan, delivery program and operational plan. It represents the final component of the audit risk and improvement framework that the regulator, OLG, requires all councils to embrace. The other key components are already well progressed, which include maturing the ARIC itself, internal audit and improvement. The ARIC has been very appreciative of the patience and professionalism of the council team in responding to us and our many questions, which we know takes quite some effort on top of what is already a very busy day job for them. Mr. Administrator, that concludes my report.
Thank you very much, Mr. Horn. No doubt you would have said in the report if you weren't, but can I just confirm you're happy with the cooperation, support and transparency in response to questions asked by the ARIC of the General Manager and all staff?
Yes, I can say we absolutely are, and that we've asked a lot of questions, and that implies quite a bit of work for the council staff to answer them, and we've been very happy with both the quality and the speed of all those responses, so absolutely.
Look, I don't think it's any secret that we were coming off a pretty low base when it came to an audit committee, and I thank you and your other committee members for the work that you're doing. General Manager, have you got any queries? No. Okay, well, thanks very much for that. I would move that standing orders be resumed and declare that carried. In relation to item 9.1, Audit Risk Committee, I would move the officer's recommendation as outlined on page 7 of the business paper that Council note the 2022-2023 Audit Risk and Improvement Committee annual report and add the words "and thank the Chair, Mr. Horn, for his attendance." Declare that carried. Thank you very much. The next item is item 9.2, the Community and Recreation Facilities Strategy. We have a consultant attending, so I have to also go suspension of standing orders again. Will this be presented concurrently or separately? With Mr. Robinson or together or?
First of all, Ms. Chappell first.
Okay, thanks very much. Sorry. I would move the standing orders be suspended in order for Ms. Tina Chappell of Astrolab Group to address Council on item 9.2, Community and Recreation Facilities Study and Strategy, Post-Exhibition Report, and declare that carried. General Manager.
Thank you, Mr. May. Before Ms Chappell from Astrolab provides an overview of the strategy, I'd just like to make a couple of comments. The first one is this has been a long process, probably longer than we had intended, but a very important process to make sure we actually get it right. And it was underpinned by a detailed study, a lot of consultation, a lot of professional expertise, a lot of analysis in terms of statistics. With population stats, I note Mr Anstey's comments around DPE, Department of Planning and Environment's population statistics. We rely a lot on the Profile ID, which is it's more or less a live population program that looks at population projections as well as on the ground actually what's happening. And so it takes ABS, it takes looking at DA's housing supply, occupancy of the new housing that's coming through, and then forecast the population. And that's updated every March. It's on Council's website and available for anybody to review. The study that's being done has been based on the local housing strategy, and where we see patterns of development as adopted in that local housing strategy. It's important to note that that strategy was adopted by Council late 2021, and that has set the framework upon which a lot of the other strategic work has been built. At the council meeting on the 25th of August, there was a report from the strategic outcomes area that laid out the framework of how we're bringing the plans together and how those plans integrate to provide a strong evidence and evidence base and a strategic framework for the council, particularly the incoming council, to base decisions for the future. In that framework, it talks about the community rec facilities strategy, which is before the council today, but also covers the integrated transport strategy that, as part of that, looks at key activity nodes such as schools, facilities, commercial precincts, and then how they're linked. It also brings together other pieces of work that are either have been completed or are currently underway around medium density controls, the Barrel Town Centre Master Plan, the Ship Master Plan, to name a few. So I'd refer people to the 25th of August council meeting, and that report, there's a really simple diagram that shows the program between 23-24 out to 25-26 and how that all integrates. There were some comments around funding, and Ms Chappell may add to this. Under the EPNA Act, there's the old Section 94 and 94A, which is now referred to as Section 11 and Section 12 under the Act. It is not possible to use that particular source of funds on private land. And Mr Davis, who's Director of Communities in Place, may wish to talk about funds derived from Section 93, which is the voluntary planning agreements. In relation to funding, Council has been very supportive and continues to be supportive of the basketball, as noted in the strategy, keen to work with you to secure funds. And I note Council has previously provided significant loan funds to the association in the order of just over $500,000, and I understand that the basketball are paying that loan back, and there's a couple of $100,000 still outstanding on that interest-free loan. We'll continue to work with, the plan is to continue to work with the association to secure funds to assist you to develop the facility. I won't steal Ms Chappell's thunder, but if I could ask you to talk through the key basically how the strategy was pulled together, the informing information and the key strategies as part of that. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam General Manager, Mr Chair. Thank you for the opportunity to speak to this item tonight, post-exhibition for the Community and Recreation Facilities Strategy. I might just start speaking to it, and if it works, it works. As referred to by Madam General Manager, this strategy has been put together using a lot of evidence-based... Come on. The strategy has been put together using a lot of evidence base, particularly that taken from the Treadwell study. The Treadwell Management Services study prepared both a detailed study, a needs analysis, and also a facility analysis in terms of the Shire's recreational and community facilities. We've utilised that to pull together the strategy. The strategy is very much a long-term roadmap, and I'll talk to some of the additional changes within the strategy post-exhibition that I hope really emphasises that and pulls that out. If we had a second slide, we do, there we go. There we go. So in terms of summary of key changes, taking on board a lot of the community feedback on the strategy, the readability of the strategy and the clarity on the strategy. I've just highlighted there the 8 key changes that have been made to the strategy post-exhibition. There are a number of other minor changes in terms of clarification, grammar, things like that as well. So I won't go through them in detail now. I've got a slide for each one. So the first was around the scope of the strategy. We want to be really clear that this is a long-term, 20-year strategic planning framework for the Shire. So we've provided some additional graphics within the strategy that I hope just clarify the linkages between this strategy, other strategies of council, and also council's governing document, if you would, your community strategic plan, and how this strategy relates to the strategic plan, as well as the other strategies noted there in that diagram. One of the key things that came out of the community consultation was around the lack of identification of more passive recreation functions. So we wanted to be very clear that whilst they're really important, they can be captured through some of the other strategies that council has, such as the park strategy, the play space strategy, recreational walking track strategies such as that, which really enable you to elevate the importance of those items. This strategy is very much about that strategic framework without getting into the nitty-gritty detail. Secondly, we've added another graphic in there around how the actions will be implemented and providing a little bit more clarity around the 3 separate actions within the plan. So you've got your high-level priority projects, which are your aquatics, your indoor recreation facility and the destination play spaces. So we wanted to be very clear that these are really important projects, but they are also very high value projects. And with that comes a high level of detail of investigation and scoping and evaluation for council. So in this diagram, you'll see there's a couple of references to community engagement opportunities and also more detailed analysis and scoping through each of those different strategies. So it needs to be really clear, and I hope it's now clear in the strategy, that there will be additional opportunities for key stakeholders to be involved as the strategy is implemented throughout the 20-year life cycle. And that'll be including the really detailed conversations about what's needed and new amenities and facilities and things like that as well. So this, I hope, clarifies that for the residents. We've spoken about strategic priorities being the most important, I guess, for the Shire. And just to clarify some of the strategic directions within the document, we've provided some additional wording. So these are the strategic directions as they now reference in the document. We've spoken about Mittagong Precinct for a year-round facility, the decommissioning of the Mittagong pool, and also around the cost-benefit analysis. And to your point, Mr. Administrator, the Bowral and Bundanoon swimming centres, the detailed operational analysis and feasibility analysis is about giving council the evidence to make the right decisions. And that needs to look at what opportunities there are around different operational models, what opportunities there are around capital upgrades and needs, and making evidence-based decisions on all the facilities. To the indoor facilities, again, rewording of the strategic direction just to provide clarity on these. And obviously in terms of the multi-purpose indoor facility in the Mittagong precinct, and just highlighting the need around access for residents in the north, particularly around that district and local level facility, and ensuring there is access for residents towards the north of the Shire. And again, investigation around the site that supports a multi-purpose hub delivery model, which is one of the key principles identified within the strategy, and really maximising efficiencies in terms of provision and providing improved community outcomes more widely. We also received feedback as part of the strategy around some of the key partners, our delivery partners within the community, and we've added a few sections into the strategy to really highlight the role that they play in terms of delivering services within the community. So two key partners that we've highlighted there are the Southern Highlands Botanic Gardens and also the Robinson Community Technology Centre. So a few more words in the strategy just to highlight how important those partnerships are and how Council will continue to work with those partners as well. In terms of planning for facilities, we've provided more clarity and how this is done. And I wish it was a pure science. It is not a pure science. There are a number of factors that need to be considered when looking at a facility provision. Madam General Manager has spoken to the population demand. This strategy is based on population forecasting methodology, and that takes into consideration not just new housing through greenfield development, it also looks at infill housing, and I think importantly it also looks at demographic changes in terms of household density and population sizes. And that's why there may be a differential between that forecasting modelling and the housing strategy. We also look at sport, recreation and cultural participation. Unfortunately, again, there's not great figures on these, so it's very much reliant on the different sporting groups reporting to Sport New South Wales in terms of participation numbers. So these all go into the consideration, but as I say, it's not a perfect science by no stretch of the imagination. Access and travel distances is very key in terms of considering, particularly around your local district and regional catchment areas, and obviously demographic changes into the future as well. So we've also added a new section into the strategy, and that's around next steps, and that really provides clarity and some deliverable timeframes for Council as well around those strategic directions in the priority projects. So this section will detail within the next 24 months what will happen with regards to the strategic directions and what will be implemented. And there's also a section in there that speaks to the Shire-wide and precinct actions and how they will be considered and implemented through Council's delivery programs and operational plans. So those two plans are, I guess, the delivery plans for Council, whereas this is more that strategic framework that informs those delivery plans moving forward. Other key changes to note, we've spoken about the addition of the Lackey Park Master Plan. So that's been added in as a precinct action within Mossvale Precinct. We've also highlighted the need for facilities in our villages and small communities and the role that they play as well in terms of providing that community focal point, points of congregation during bushfires, things like that. So we've highlighted that throughout the strategy as well, that they are very important and will continue to be planned for and provided by Council. That's the end.
In relation to, there's been really a focus in for two areas tonight from members of the community. That relates, of course, to the basketball and to the water polo. But I see in the report the huge value in what you call precinct actions. In, I think it's 12 or something precincts. That's lost so far in the discussion, and I think it shows Shire-wide, and it's important. And I'm proposing to add another part to the recommendation in relation to giving the staff a greater role in selling that side of it, and how that then links. You mentioned it back to the integrated planning, so that the council can take those matters forward, and they're not lost. Like, I think it's been said by both the water polo and the basketball teams that so many reports are done and they're lost. It's important that doesn't happen. Is Sean going to make? Can we start? I think we'll stay as we are in. And ask Sean, because I've got some questions, so please don't go, because I don't know who. It's from what has been said earlier, I just want to tease some things out.
Mr Administrator, would you like Mr Robinson to introduce the item? And yep.
Yeah, I'm happy, and then I've got some questions I want to ask.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. Well, thank you, General Manager and Mr May. The purpose of this report is to present to Council the submissions made during the public exhibition of the Community and Recreation Facility Strategy, as well as the updates to the strategy upon consideration of the submissions, and to subsequently seek Council's adoption of the strategy in the next steps. So the strategy was on public exhibition from 28th of June to the 3rd of August. To assist with the exhibition period, a strategy summary document was prepared and included on the Your Say Wingecarribee page, and a community drop-in session was also held on the 25th of July. The public exhibition period saw a lot of interest. The page received 2,200 visits. The documents were downloaded almost 900 times, and a total of 183 submissions were received. 56 written emails, and 127 of the 183 were through the online survey submission form. All submissions received have been collated into a consolidated public exhibition report, which is attached to this council report. Given the wide covering nature of the strategy, the submissions received naturally also covered a wide range of topics and perspectives. The common themes across them have been identified and responded to in the public exhibition report. In light of the submissions received, as just mentioned, a new chapter has been included at the start of the strategy to provide greater context on the strategy and its integration in the wider planning processes of Council. It also provides more clarity on what the strategy includes and also does not consider within its current scope. Notwithstanding across the submissions, as already mentioned, the topics of aquatics, multi-purpose indoor sporting facility, and Lackey Park Regional Sporting Hub were frequently referenced, and so I think it is reasonable to spend a moment to speak to these items. In relation to the strategic direction of aquatics, as mentioned, there was strong support for the provision of a regional aquatic and leisure facility to service the northern part of the Shire. Of those that responded to the online survey, only 28% disagreed with this notion, which I think shows quite a high level of support for the strategic direction. Notwithstanding, looking at recent projects across the state, it needs to be acknowledged that a project of this nature is a significant investment of Council, and so prior to embarking on a design and DA phase, it does need the preparation of a sound business case to review best location, what's in, what's out, and also an operating model to ensure the project can be financially sustainable and viable. Which I think then really flows on to the second point under the strategic direction, which is in relation to Bundanoon and Bowral swimming centres. So one of the updates to the report was also to include Bowral Swimming Centre within the cost-benefit review of operating models that was initially only prescribed for Bundanoon. The priority has to be on financial sustainability for the Council's asset portfolio. And so given the relatively new age of Mossvale, a review just has to be done of Bundanoon and Bowral to ensure that it can be sustainable into the future. Both assets are nearing end of life and so will require significant financial investment. The review needs to be done such that we can be sustainable in that instance. And so similar with Mittagong Pool, the recommendation is for the permanent closure and eventual decommissioning of Mittagong Pool once, I guess, a plan has been determined for that wider area. The facility is constructed directly within the high hazard flood extents of the Naddai River, and so it is subject to floodwaters that are both high depth and high velocity during large events. Since 2016, over $6 million has been spent on the facility, almost 50-50 on just basic asset renewal as required, but also to repair the facility following flooding events. Of that $6 million, 2.5 is insurance funding, but the rest has come from Council's own source revenue. The facility, when operational, does have an ongoing operational expense of in the order of $500,000. And so, as mentioned, aquatic facilities, they provide a valuable asset and benefit to the community, but Council does need to be financially sustainable. And so these assets need to be located somewhere where they can be maximised and the operational model can be the most favourable outcome for all involved. With multi-purpose indoor sporting facility, the public exhibition results did show that 63% of those that responded to the survey were supportive of an indoor sports facility being provided in the northern part of the Shire. And so this aligns with the recommendations of the strategy. It is acknowledged that I think it was 33% of respondents to the survey did not support this notion, or they in turn supported the Lackey Park Regional Sporting Hub, which in turn proposes one for the south. Notwithstanding, sorry, I'll stick to my notes. The strategy acknowledges that Moss Vale Indoor Sports Stadium is and will continue to be a valued asset for the community, and that any future upgrades to the facility will positively contribute to the supply of recreation facilities in the southern part of the Shire. And so it is recommended that Council continue to support Moss Vale Basketball in their pursuit of the Southern Highlands Indoor Sports Hub through letters of support and assist in grant funding opportunities. But the strategic direction of Council is recommended to remain unchanged, with a business case to be developed for the provision of a multi-purpose indoor sporting facility in the northern part of the Shire. Through the business case, the site, scope, operational models, and fundamental financial sustainability and viability are to be determined. To respond to some of the points that made during the public forum, and bear with me, I was trying to quickly write my notes. So in terms of the developer contributions, as mentioned by the General Manager, legal advice has been received that for 7-Eleven funds, they cannot be expended on a private facility on private land. Even if it does serve or benefit the public, it doesn't meet the definition of the legislation that we have to operate under. In terms of the growth areas around Moss Vale and East Barrel, that is acknowledged. However, the strategy's intent is to service the catchment of the northern area of the Shire. For the dedication of the Moss Vale Basketball land or the offer of a long-term lease, my understanding is that the offer of a sale or the offer of a long-term lease hasn't been formally made as part of this community and recreation facility strategy. From what I can see, there is a reference in the submissions from Moss Vale Basketball of a previous offer of long-term lease to, I believe, previous council members or council staff. However, it doesn't look like that was acted upon at the time. I think for, upon reflection, I think my understanding is that the strategy does not assert that the Southern Highlands Indoor Sports Hub is a bad project. It's not that it is not a worthwhile project. It's simply that it sees the provision of a multi-purpose indoor centre in the north as a higher priority for council. And so to respond to the comments of why is there almost no real support for the SHISH in the strategy, it's more so that the purpose of the strategy is to prioritise council's investment, and so that is the prioritisation exercise that has been made. It's a decision on priority, a determination on priority, not a determination on what is I guess, a good project or not a good project. The strategy still asserts that it is beneficial for the community, for council to support the project. However, that support to just not be in financial terms. The third point of high interest is around Lackey Park Regional Sporting Hub in and of itself. So in accordance with previous resolutions of council, the community and rec facility strategy the regional sporting hub plan is to be reviewed in light of the strategy. And so upon consideration of the principles and actions of the strategy, it is recommended that the Lackey Park Regional Sporting Hub plan is revised such that for Lackey Park itself, the master plan still achieves the purposes of better utilisation of land and the creation of a multi-use potential within the site, but instead for the facilities to be of a more appropriate size and scale. And so that does look like more of a focus on change room and amenities, the provision of standard level sports field lighting and adjustment of the sports fields, but to not pursue a 1,200 seater grandstand or broadcast level lights. And then following that, similar to support a decoupling of the Lackey Park project to decouple the Southern Highlands Indoor Sports Hub project from Lackey Park, with the master plan now to more so focus on upgrades within Lackey Park alone. Notwithstanding, all stakeholders, including Moss Vale Basketball, will be consulted through the revision of the master plan. And the intent is for Moss Vale Basketball to retain ownership and responsibility for the progression of future design and construction stages for the SHISH project. There are other minor updates to the strategy, and these are all detailed within the council report. The report concludes with 6 recommendations to encompass all of the aforementioned items. That's all.
Look, firstly, if I congratulate Ms Chappell and Ms Robinson and their teams, we've come a long, long way since that Treadwell report, and there's now a clear direction. I've got some questions, but it mainly relates to Mittagong. And I don't know who asked the question of, so you can take it in turns if you want. There seems to be a lot of reliance that we own land in the Mittagong precinct where all this can go. At the back of your minds, I'm not asking you because it's obviously a process you're going to go through, but have you got options?
Mr. Mayor, I guess in the first instance, there is simply council's existing portfolio of land in Mittagong, which includes a mixture of sports fields and reserves. However, the intent is to, given the size of the facility and the investment that it is to ensure that we first and foremost place it in the best location. And so that will largely be the subject of the business case.
But you wouldn't be proposing to replace one form of recreation on an active recreation area with another form of recreation?
At this point, it's not making a proposal either way. I think the strategy currently doesn't make the consideration in...
All I'm really saying is, from my perspective and from my dealings with the community, if you're looking at Mittagong Oval, forget it. That's all I'm just saying at this stage, but that's up to the professional officers and the consultants to report, but that's my view.
If I may, Mr. May. I think one of the points that was raised earlier is that pools are black holes, and they are, because if you have a standalone pool, there is very little opportunity to make sufficient revenue to cover the cost. So that's one of the reasons why in the strategy it's proposed to look at co-location. As part of the strategy, there's also indoor facilities. So with the aquatic strategy, it's looking at what are the options, what are possible sites. If it is co-located, that obviously has land area implications, and also looking at the ongoing operational costs. Capital's easy in the scheme of things. It's the ongoing operational costs and the impact on the long-term financial plan. And again, that will be part of the business case for the aquatic study and feasibility.
The report says that we're spending $497,000 per annum down at Mittagong. Is that what it's costing to keep it closed, or...?
No, so that's the historical cost for operation across the previous 3 years. The current cost of Mittagong Pool, there is a budget of $30,000 allocated, 1/3 of which is for the repayment of historical loans.
The $6 million that's been spent there since 2016. I think you said 2.5 of that is government, 3.5 is the council?
Correct. So of the 6 million, approximately 50% was standard asset renewal at end of life. The other 50%, so 3 million, was in response to flooding events. Of that 3 million, 2.5 was recoverable through our insurance policy.
Look, this happened long before you arrived, but it's happened in recent time. The second flood study for Natai Creek says the council should further investigate the flooding events before they spend any more money on the pool. I think it's shameful that they didn't. So it's in effect $6 million of public money, because taxes is the same as rates, has gone into that since 2016.
Yep, that is correct. So that was reported to council, I believe, back in 2021. And so repairs were last done across the 2020-2021 summer. And then unfortunately there was another flooding event in May. So prior to the pool reopening, it then suffered further damage and it has remained closed.
Well, residents can come to their own conclusions about the competency or otherwise of decisions like that. There was a question asked by the gentleman whose name escapes me about why does it take 6 months to do the business case. I know why, but could you please explain for the benefit of...
I would think 6 months is pretty optimistic, in all honesty. In the strategy, learning from our experience with the development of the strategy, we have put a conservative 24 months. We are very hopeful of that being completed a lot earlier. But nonetheless, I guess the complexity of the items that you have raised even tonight, they just take time to work through, unfortunately.
And you've got the procurement question too, obviously.
Of course. Yeah.
Now, the suggestion about why aren't we looking more closely at Bowral to do something substantial. You've got the site. There's a 50-metre pool there plus the smaller one, but no water polo pool and no aquatic play space is what you're talking about.
Correct. I think the primary intention is that it wants to be a sufficient distance away from Mossvale Swimming Centre, and so there's a lot of talk around 15-minute and 20-minute catchments, and so having the facility in Mittagong puts it outside of that catchment, and so will, I guess, increase access and attraction to our the northern part of the Shire.
But to cut to the quick, a Greenfields aquatic facility, you're probably talking $50 or $60 million, which is a lot of money. Would it be worthwhile to look also, when you're doing your recommendation, the business case for the Mittagong precinct, to also look at the feasibility of Bowral?
It's probably an unfair question for Mr. Robinson. I'm happy to look at that. I think, as Mr. Robinson mentioned, it's also looking at the catchments and the 15-20 minute distance and the impact, potentially, the financial impact on the Mossvale facility, depending on the catchments, but we could certainly have that factored into the scope of the project.
So then if we were to add that into the recommendation 5A, does that conflict then with 5B?
I wouldn't think so. I think they can be done in a complementary way.
So your colleagues happy with that
Oh, perfect.
too? But look, I don't want to build expectations or, adopt unreasonable recommendations, but I do think that it's worthwhile to have a look at that. But I don't know whether the community would accept an indoor facility there, because it would be quite big. And, you know, if we're going to be realistic, we're talking about all-weather, all-season facility. So there'd be traffic. And I don't think that the Southern Highlands water polo will be happy unless they get a water polo pool. So all those things could be looked at on that site, and it wouldn't slow things down.
I don't think it would be a dramatic change to the scope of the business case. No, I would recommend that if we the current strategy as one of our updates during this post-exhibition period, we further clarified for the facility to be investigated for the Mittagong precinct, and so if we look to include Bowral, I think an additional resolution to then update the strategy to also reflect that just helps remove any further confusion.
So you wouldn't want to slow down the cost benefit of Bowral and Bundaroon until after April when you finish the other, or they go hand in hand?
I would think they all occur hand in hand, because part of it is looking at, I guess, the operational costs and the financial sustainability of the aquatics portfolio.
Yeah,
as opposed to individual.
But I also want to make it very clear that it's not the council's intention to, in effect, kill off the Bundaroon Swimming Centre. It's that the council has informed information to make future decisions, and it's just not about dollars. It's about the social fabric of any community.
Correct, because I think part of it could also be looking at, are there other operating models for the facility, or also are there other ways to better activate the facility? So it's taking more of a holistic review.
Yeah, and that's something that didn't just happen in this place. Okay, well, after I wrote something down while the gentleman was talking. In 5A, after precinct of the Shire, could you add or at the Bowral Swimming Centre site? That will make... And I had already, as I forecast, in relation to the precinct actions, I think they can't be lost. They're fantastic. And it'll show the whole community that this is a strategic document that, without building expectations, I think it's important. So number 7 would be the General Manager arrange for an information session to be scheduled to provide an overview of the community and recreation facility strategy, including the recommendations and precinct actions, and how these will be taken forward under Council's integrated planning and reporting framework. And that ties into what you were talking about. In relation to the basketball and Lackey Park, I don't think this report devalues at all your position. I think it's important to talk as we move forward, and to get the council's support for what you want to do also, and your options. But I agree with taking the Lackey Park out, because I think it just complicates taking the basketball forward, to be quite frank. So okay, how are we going with that? I would move that standing orders be resumed and declare that carried. And we need a 5-minute adjournment. The system's frozen, so I'll adjourn for 5 minutes.